Atheists. Oh, we're not live. I take that back.
We were just testing. I'm ready to go. Probably go a little bit after 7.
Gotta turn my sound off.
Good call.
I made this on a lot. Who's taking the calls?
Mark, are you gonna also be taking calls too? Because I don't know where the fuck.
We have a call coming in at 7:05.
We're live. Oh, we're live on YouTube. You mean? Okay. Well, that's fine. Hi, YouTube. It's good to see everybody out there. Sorry, we're having a little bit of a snag before the show. All right, Mark, our tech advisor of the day, working diligently, trying to make sure our show runs smoothly. Your work is greatly appreciated.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I tried calling him. He's down by Parkview Field doing something or other. So I don't know what's going on.
You just keep in mind that when Star Trek started off, they had the cheesy type of props, you know, and they had, I wouldn't say technical problems, but they had to work through those sorts of things. Keep her on as long as she's got something to say. Keep Reba on as long as she's got something to say. Oh yeah. Maybe take up the whole hour. Who knows?
And we're live. Thank you for watching. We are Atheists. My name is Caleb Sitman. I'm joined today by John Loftus. We are your hosts. I'd like to remind everybody that if you would like to call the show to discuss the great debate, humanism, atheism, aliens, goblins, whatever the case may be, give us a call, 260-422-3902. I'm going to say it again because I don't see an information bar at the bottom of the screen. That's 260-422-3902. I'd like to shout out our Facebook viewers out there and say that we apologize that yet again you guys are looking at a green screen. We thought that we had this handled. Not a big deal. I can almost guarantee that by the next show we should have this fixed.
We're getting things worked out.
Yes. Those of you who are not watching this on YouTube Live and might be watching this live on Access or Access 2, excuse me, you'll notice that we have a new backdrop. This WAA that you're looking at, the top of it's cut off, unfortunately, a bit up there. But that is our new logo, and I'm very proud to launch this product here. This product motivated us to go ahead and start our new merchandise line. So we started a cafe press shopping center for those who would like to purchase We Are Atheist gear and swag. We have a couple of t-shirts for men and women, and we also have a couple of buttons and stickers, things like that. So if you'd like to support the show, if you'd like to also support your local Free Thought Fort Wayne Humanist chapter, please feel free to check that out. That's Cafe Press. That's cafe with a little dash press.com/We Are Atheists.
We need to get a couple of those shirts to show them.
I agree.
We need to wear them, and maybe the ball caps and the cups. And if you got footwear, I want to put that on too. I mean, we need to deck ourselves out with all that.
We're gonna have all sorts of swag over the coming years, I assure you. Our new creative director, Jack Hubert. I'm very humbled to have this man on our team. He is incredible. He's been doing wonders behind the scenes to really boost the quality of our product, and I want to give him a huge shout out. I thank you very much for that. And this logo is what's going to be slapped on most of our swag. We also have that basic WAA logo for some of the darker merchandise as well. So, that said, John and I have a special guest that is going to be calling in today.
I'm excited.
Yeah. Her name is Reba Wooden. She is the executive director of the Center for Inquiry in Indiana. She was actually one of the founding members that started the Humanist Friendship Group of Central Indiana in 1999, which eventually became the Center for Inquiry. We hope to be hearing from her very soon. In fact, I'm told that we do have her on the line, so we'll be talking with her momentarily. But the reason why I wanted to have her onto the show in the first place was because Indiana recently passed a new bill that requires parents to give permission to teachers before the teachers can actually teach sex education. So, more on this. We have Rebecca Wooden to talk about this. We'll be getting her on the line here in just a second, I'm told. Well, I see.
Reba, she's in Indianapolis, and she's telling us all what's going on down there, and she's really in the forefront of, a humanist activist down there, informing us about what's going on. And she's just a wonderful lady. We're excited to have her. Reba, are you there?
Reba, can you hear us? Seem to be having some minor technical difficulties. Hopefully we didn't drop the call. Okay. She's going to have to recall. I apologize about that.
Well, we should have like a song and a dance. I mean, we should have some dancing guys, or something like that, but we don't. So maybe we should have a video of that.
Our new creative director thought that we ought to have something in the backdrop that changes periodically.
It's called
for
fill.
Situations just like
it's
that.
called fill. We've got to have some fill.
Okay, so what I'm hoping to learn from Reba today is really what this bill actually says and what it doesn't say, because I'm sure there are a lot of misconceptions on both sides. I'd like to myself understand who's really pushing the narrative to pass this bill, that got the bill passed in the first place, this law, I should say. And really, that is to say, I would like to know who's largely responsible for this bill and what the likely implications are going to be. So, in the meantime, while we're waiting to get Reba back on the line, I wanted to go ahead and touch up on a couple of housekeeping items that we have on the show. As I mentioned, we now have merchandise available, t-shirts, mugs, and the like. That also means that in the very near future, I'm going to be launching our Patreon campaign as well, for those who would like to contribute. There are going to be a lot of perks for the Patreon supporters. If you would like to, for example, donate $1, you could have your name in the credits, things like this. And we'll also be giving out swag, t-shirts, things like that. But one other important housekeeping item that I would love to bring up, because I feel terrible. I've actually forgotten to do this every episode. I've been so caught up in the moment. Here on We Are Atheists, I wanted to have an artists outreach. I really wanted to ask local artists, Fort Wayne local artists, and to submit their work to have it displayed on our show. I want to get the side shots where it's just either myself or John, and off to the side I'd like to, like over here somewhere, I'd like you guys to be able to see some artwork which has been submitted by local artists. Perhaps you're an artist and you'd like to submit your work. If you would like to submit work, you can contact us on Facebook, or you can email your sample to weareatheiststv@gmail.com. All right, now I'm told that we do, in fact, have Reba back on the line. Reba, can you hear us? You're on with John and Caleb. Uh-oh. I hope this isn't going to be a lasting issue. That's okay. So, Reba, can you hear me now? Well, I'm just going to keep talking. Reba, if you can hear me, feel free to interrupt me at any point to let us know that you're here. I do apologize for this. I don't know what's going on behind the screen here, but in the meantime, I'd like to mention that the backdrop that you will normally be seeing, the Fort Wayne City landscape, that was actually submitted to us by a volunteer, a local volunteer. His name was John Casket. John Casket operates his own artist studio downtown. You can look up information. Yeah, I believe it's John Caskett's sprayarts.com. I mentioned him in the credits, and there's information on our Facebook page about that. But I think he did a fantastic job with our backdrop. And as such, I'd also like to mention that every year, each season, we will be swapping out that backdrop for a new one. And we'll be asking for local artists, and we can shine a light on you, on your studio, put out any information that you want. The main reason why I wanted to get this, well, there's several reasons, but I really wanted to have an artist outreach because I think that the arts are very important, for one. Two, I think that one of the most absurd claims that I hear from theists and the like is that you can't have art or anything along those lines without some sort of theistic bent, right? The Sistine Chapel wouldn't be what it is without God, for example. And then just the simple fact that I want to be able to provide local artists, starving, struggling artists, with an opportunity to just get their work out there and show it to the world. And this is something that I'm pretty passionate about.
Keep talking.
Keep talking. So,
well, how about, when you finish with the discussion about the artists, I have a question to ask you. So tell me when you think you're done, and then we'll just talk on.
Sure. So I'd just like to mention that we already do have a volunteer. He got in touch with us yesterday, so we don't have his art in studio. But I want to sort of briefly describe the process that goes on with that. So again, you would need to submit a sample of your work to weareatheisttv@gmail.com. We will review the product. If it's appropriate to have on television, we'll put it out here. And if we'll ask for some information that you would like us to give, if you want your name, your business information, etc., and we'll have your stuff on set. And I also want to set up a gallery on our official website eventually. As I mentioned, we just have the one volunteer, so don't really have enough to start up a gallery per se, but we can get that ball rolling in the future. John? Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to plug a book. May I? I'm going to plug a book. It gives me something to do and gives us all something to think about. This one, it's called Christianity is Not Great. And I have it here for a reason. It has to do with the discussion that we're going to have about, the sex ed in the schools. Thank you so much. Yeah, this is a big one. And now it has a lot of chapters here about a lot of different things that show why Christianity has harmed or is continuing to harm, a great society. So it has scientific harms, moral harms, cultural harms. It talks about the harms of faith, and there's different chapters like on slavery and the Crusades. You think you've heard about the Crusades? Well, David Eller has a really good chapter describing that. He has a chapter also on the missionary advancement throughout the world and how that Christianity destroyed indigenous peoples in order to set up their missionary campaigns. And it's just horrific, some of the stuff we have in this book, like faith healing and what it doesn't do. So, for the purposes of a discussion later, Veronica Drance has a chapter here on the LGBTI people and the medical harms that have come upon them because doctors who are conservative or Christian or who else have had to decide whether or not the children who are born with penises and vaginas should be one or the other. And it's a very interesting chapter, but all in all, it talks about the harms that Christianity has done and continues to do, and what motivates me as an atheist author of 10 books, and edited compilations. If there was one book that would describe my passion, it'd be this one. People say, well, why do you keep writing books? Why do you keep arguing against Christians? Well, first of all, I don't do it, I don't go up and down the streets, knocking on doors like the Jehovah's Witnesses. Some people don't even know I'm an atheist. I'm not opposed to coming out, but some people don't even know I'm an atheist until now. Hi, Mom and Dad. I'm just teasing on that one. But I put it out, I write it, and if you write it, they will come. And so, if you're interested, and only if you're interested, will you buy those anyway? But I need to put this out there because I don't want people to say, well, why are you attacking my beliefs? Here's why. I mean, not that I'm never attacking anyone as a person. Mm-hmm. It's always beliefs, and attack might be strong, but sometimes that. And only that word really applies, but I'm educating, and so so I just thought I'd give that little shout out, not knowing whether Reba's on or not. But if you have any questions while we're waiting, we can do that.
Well, I think that if I can get a thumbs up from somebody in the forum, do we still have a call on the line? We do. Okay, I'm not entirely sure if this is Reba, but thank you for calling. You are on with John and Caleb here on We Are Atheists. Can you hear me? Hello, hello.
It's times like this I wish I were a ventriloquist. I mean, I really do. I mean, I would have...
That would really come in handy.
What are you doing there? You know, I've got a really easy softball question for you, but I'm just not.
Well, apparently I need to add test phone lines to the pre-show checklist. Test phone lines. It's officially on there now, guys. I'm dead serious about this because we need to do this. I don't know why, and I apologize. I hope that this isn't the same person calling over and over and over again, constantly getting dropped.
Our apologies.
Yeah, I do apologize for that. But I'm going to wait for another thumbs up from our wonderful studio folks there back there behind the glass. There's a couple of other housekeeping items that I'd like to mention. We got a lot today, as I'd mentioned. I myself will be attending the Ark Encounter protests this July 7th, which is this coming up Saturday. I wasn't sure originally the first time I mentioned it on the show if I was going to be going, but I knew for sure at the time, even if it was just the last 3 minutes of the show, that I wanted to mention it. I think that these are the sort of protests which really fill my particular niche for myself. These are the sorts of things that I want to go out there and protest. So as such, as I mentioned, I will be there July 7th. The event runs from 10 until 2-ish. These sort of events tend to have a plus or minus who knows how long, just because of the nature of the beast. I'd like to one more time reiterate who the speakers for this protest are going to be, because I think that the lineup is amazing. We have Seth Andrews, who is the host of The Thinking Atheist, one of my favorite podcasters, and I still listen to him frequently. I don't think there's a single week in the last 3 years where I haven't listened to a Seth Andrews podcast or something.
He's amazing.
He's incredible. Aaron Raw is one of my favorite outspoken atheists. A bit firebrand for my taste, I will admit. That's mostly just because I like to try and approach counter-apologetics in such a way that it's not going to make the atheist feel intimidated or threatened.
He's really a good speaker, you know.
He's fantastic.
And
He's
you
so
know, I know them.
smart.
I know Seth and Aaron both. Seth interviewed me for one of his programs, and they're just amazing people. There's a lot of amazing people speak. They don't really have people who are amazing.
Oh yeah, Kelly Helton, she was one of the equal rights advocates for the Tri-State Free Thinkers. We have Lauren Blavelt. I've never heard of her myself, but Phil Ferguson, of course, Monica Burns, Debbie Allen, and more to be announced from what I gather. And again, so this timeline is supposed to last from 10 until about 2 o'clock. I would like to put it out there that the protests are going to be near a highway. So they really recommend that you don't bring small children if that is something that you are thinking about doing, which is why my son isn't going to be there. I'm going by myself. So from 10 until 11, there's going to be protests near the highway and the visitor exhibitor booths. And then from 11 to 11:45, there are going to be rallies with the speakers. I'm really excited for that myself. Then there's going to be a 15-minute march 2x2 to the encounter itself. Then from 12 to 12:30 is when the actual protest goes on. It's the protest in front of the Ark Encounter from 12:30 to 45. They're going to march back 12:45 to 1:45. It's just going to be like a luncheon. Get to mingle, hang out, and have fun. And then finally, there's going to be closing comments from everybody that was there, the directors and so forth. Now, again, as I mentioned, this is the sort of event that I want to address. I think that the Ark Encounter itself is, well, it's a scientific abomination.
It's abysmal. Did you know I was a speaker last year for that event?
I did,
Yeah.
as a matter of fact.
What we did is we gathered together and we had a few speakers, and then we did a little march. You know, we marched up to the gate. And what was interesting is, you know, cars were going by. Some were honking at us, some were yelling at us. So watch out. Gladly, someone actually threw something.
So I was about to ask if somebody threw something.
But there was a drone up ahead, and it was photographing us, trying to get a scale of the numbers there, and it was interesting. It was just really, really quite an interesting thing there.
You know, to be honest with you, I've never met Aaron Raw, and as I mentioned, I'm a big fan. I'm really giddy about fanboying out the moment I get to see one of my heroes. I'm so serious. I love the way that this guy just does his street protesting. Like, he's got a lot of videos out there. Recently, he's been popular on something called Atheist Edge. But more on R and Ron a little bit. I'm actually under the impression that we're going to try this again, everybody. We're going to try to get another phone call. Hello, you are on with John and Caleb. Can you hear me?
It sounds like Reba.
You can just barely hear us? Well, hopefully we can get that adjusted as we move on. Okay. Well, I'm assuming that we're speaking with Reba Wooden. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Well,
Good.
oh, excellent. Well, thank you for calling. We really appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. Well, okay. I thought you were taking the lead here, but
Sure. Yeah. No, that's fine.
I'm having trouble with the connection, I guess. I couldn't hear anything you were saying until just now.
just talk a little bit about this bill that's that we're talking about tonight.
SB 65, right?
Yes,
SB
yes, that one. Yeah.
Okay. Well, actually, okay, I'm the head of a coalition here in Indianapolis that advocated and did a lot of work against that bill. Now, the bill passed, but it was amended to the point that it really means nothing. So we were pretty happy that we got it amended to the point that it didn't do what it was designed to do in the first place.
Which was what exactly? Do you know what it was originally intended for?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've worked on this for several months. Well, originally, the original bill wanted no child to be taught sex education unless the parents opted in. And we fought that, and we wanted it an opt-out, which an opt-out is what most school systems already did. So with all the amendments, by the time it passed, it basically is an opt-out.
Oh, good.
Oh, okay.
Good.
Okay.
And the way it's complicated, okay? And school systems are gonna hate it because it's paperwork. But, they, and all the principals, superintendents, teachers' organizations, all did testimony. I listened to most of the testimony against the bill as it was originally written. But they got it amended to the point where what it does now is, parents have to be, made aware of what's going to be taught to their child. And then there is a, permission slip sent home, and the bill says it can be sent electronically, I guess by email. And the parent has the option of either opting in or opting out. Now, if the parent does not respond within 10 days, then the student can be taught the curriculum.
Okay.
So basically, it's an opt-out, because when this information goes home, the parent can check opt in or opt out. Well, the people who really care and want to opt out, they can do that. But what we didn't like about the total opt-in was that a lot of those parents would never even respond.
Yeah.
And, or the kids wouldn't take it home, or they wouldn't read their email, or whatever. And so there'd be a lot of kids that wouldn't be taught the curriculum.
Now,
It is now, after 10 days, if the parent doesn't reply, the child can still be taught the curriculum. Which means that it basically is an opt-out, because the only kids who won't be taught the curriculum are the ones whose parents pay attention and actually opt out.
Oh.
okay, good. Now,
We
now,
were pleased with the way it came out, considering what it started out to be.
Okay. Reba, I'm just going to test something real quick. Can you hear me okay now?
I can, but not very well.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, did you have a question?
yeah, I wanted to. I mean, I went down to a seminar that you put on in Indy about how bills get passed through Congress, and it's really quite complicated. And so I'm happy to know that you stayed with it, because it takes a lot of effort to stay with a bill and see what's going on in the different committees and who votes on what and what.
And it is a complicated process.
Right, appreciate that.
And I say I'm not only I'm my executive director of Center for Inquiry Indiana here in Indianapolis, but I'm also the president of this 23 organization I never actually testified myself, but I listened to testimony, all the testimony was given, and I say all the people connected with education did not want the total opt-in. We had principals organizations, school board, superintendents, ISPA, American Federation of Teachers, all were opposing a total opt-in for the reasons I just gave, because a lot of kids wouldn't get it just because their parents didn't pay attention and, didn't respond. So at least we got a change to where it basically is an opt-out. But that's the way most school systems were doing it anyway, because these people in the schools who testified, they said, well, we let the parents know about it, and they can opt out if they want to, so it basically didn't change anything.
Oh, okay.
And we were happy that it got amended to where it's not a total opt-in.
Yeah, when Caleb had told me that he'd like to talk about this subject, I thought for sure we had to have you on, because you're down there and you know what's going on in Indiana and the legislature. So thanks.
Keep up on anything that our organization is involved with, and Center for Inquiry Indiana is a member of this coalition called Health Access and Privacy Alliance, and I've been president of the coalition for I think 4 years. And that coalition is made up of lots of different other organizations like League of Women Voters and ACLU, of course Planned Parenthood.
Okay. So Reba,
Now, and so when we go and advocate, it's not Planned Parenthood loves it, so it's not just them, it's all these other organizations
okay.
that are coming in on things too. So, and we had a couple other bills that we advocated against this year, none of them of which got, well, one of them got passed, but it's in court, and it got struck down in court already.
Cool.
State of Indiana will probably spend more of our tax money appealing it, the 7th Circuit, and 7th Circuit won't listen to them, so they just waste more of our tax money.
So Reba, I was wondering
And
then,
this
since
bill got passed and signed by the governor, but by the time it got all the way through, it had been amended to the point that it's basically, we feel like it's harmless.
okay, well I'm glad that you say that. That actually, based on what I understood about this, that was not the impression that I was.
Between opt-in and opt-out.
Yeah, that makes a very large difference.
And
So
see, if they don't respond after 10 days, the kid gets the education.
yes.
But the parent does get the option, and they can check opt-in, but if they just don't send it back at all.
So do you think that there are going to be any long-term sociological or ecological repercussions that we ought to be concerned about,
Right.
or
And so,
we're
I mean, I support the fact that a parent should have a say in it. And when it came right down to it, and actually there was some language that got taken out of it, because the ones who were doing the bill were afraid it wouldn't get passed at all with it in there, that was anti-LGBT, and that got taken out. However, we know from hearing the testimony, and particularly one interesting exchange, is that the real reason that the people brought that bill up in the first place, Senator Cruz, one of the sponsors, or a whole bunch of other sponsors, he was the main one, was that they didn't want their kids taught about gays and lesbians. And I tell you, the testimony for that opting, for people having to opt in, some of it got very ridiculous. There was this one lady that got up there and went on and on and on, and she brought in pamphlets and all this stuff, and she said, this is the curriculum that they are teaching that they're teaching in the schools, the curriculum that Planned Parenthood wants taught, yada, 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 yada. And she really, her testimony was X-rated, because she went into detail about saying how explicit sex acts were described in both hetero and homosexual, etc. And finally, when she got pinned down, she had to say, no, nobody in Indiana is teaching this. This is not what Planned Parenthood advocates.
Scare tactics.
Not in some way. Yeah.
okay.
It's ridiculous.
So do you know who is largely responsible for steamrolling this bill in the first place, or this law?
Well, Senator Cruz was the main sponsor. I actually have still, I think it's long ago, but
Yeah, I lived up north under his reign. I know him.
Well, you
They're mostly backed by right to life and
okay.
the ridiculous thing about this is these same people who are against choice and abortion are the same ones who don't want scientific sex education. We don't have scientific sex education in Indiana anyway. It has to be abstinence only.
Really?
In public schools, they cannot teach about contraception.
I did not know that.
No, it has to be abstinence only.
Is this a recent development? Because it's not?
No.
That's
I think
really
they
cool.
got more adamant about it, that legally a teacher can't teach about contraception. They can only teach about
See, because the Bible's the
facts of how things happen, but then they can't talk about anything else.
because the Bible is the ultimate authority when it comes to politics for the evangelical right, like Dennis Cruz, and the Bible, indicates fornication is a sin, and so bottom line, just say no. And if we're
Right. It's bottom line, all they want is just say no. They want it taught that abstinence only and sex only within monogamous married relationship. That's all they want taught.
Okay, so are you suggesting that it's mainly an evangelical push to get these laws into motion then? Yeah. I would have to. I mean,
So what I started to say, the crazy thing is, these same people who are anti-choice, they don't want abortion, okay, they fight scientific sex education, and they fight availability of contraception. Now, how's the best way to prevent abortion?
cross purpose.
Scientific sex education and availability of contraception. We know that from other states. I think Colorado it is that made contraception free, and their unwanted pregnancy and their abortion rate went almost to nil.
See, that's pretty impressive.
It's real contradictory, what they. Now, interestingly enough, just today when I was kind of checking up on some things, I found out that a Republican legislator a couple of years ago tried to introduce a bill that would have revised the sex ed curriculum to include more information. But
Such
it
as?
never even got.
Oh, okay.
Never even got a hearing. And I didn't even remember that it didn't get far enough. It wasn't even on my radar.
Well, not being able to
If
promote.
we did get it up there, if our group started supporting it, that would kill it. There are some, yeah, really. There are a few bills that have been introduced that, like Planned Parenthood and our coalition, we're all in favor of. But we sat back and did not get involved because the minute they see Planned Parenthood or they see ACLU or they see somebody like that, they're absolutely going to vote against it.
If we're for it, they've got to be against it.
We actually, like the vaccination that they have, that they advocate for girls and boys to get to prevent HPV, I can't think of the name of it anyway, infections. That was up, whether they could require students to get it or not. I think it never got passed. It could be required. It could be offered. And the legislator that was advocating it, I mean, we like her and we wanted to support it, and we told her, but we would have been a poison to it. So we stayed out.
It's called politics, isn't it?
Yeah.
You got to know how to do it.
I've learned a lot.
I bet you have. You've been there for a while and appreciate all you do.
So I'm actually curious now, given the fact that this bill passed with some overwhelming majority figures here, at least from what I looked up. I'm seeing here that the...
It was in the revised form. I think in the original form, I doubt if any
And it sounds, from what you're telling me, it sounds like this bill is relatively benign. But
It is.
that said,
The way it got through, it is benign.
okay.
And it's basically the way school systems were doing it anyway, so it didn't change anything.
Okay, so that said, do you think that it might be possible, say within, I don't know, in the next decade or so, to go in the complete opposite direction and include these items, such as teaching about contraceptions?
Oh, okay. Now this bill 65 had nothing to do with that.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sorry.
It didn't have to do anything with the curriculum.
Oh, it had nothing to do with the curriculum at all.
No, it didn't have to do with the curriculum. It just had to do with whether. Well, it didn't have anything to do with what's taught. It just was.
Okay, well, that aside, though,
In or out.
in either case, I'm just kind of curious, though, because it sounds like I had no idea that we weren't allowed to educate students on contraceptives in public schools here. That's news to me. I would be willing myself to go out there and advocate that we ought to be teaching, at the very least on a high school level, these students.
Should try to get a bill passed that would be, I think term used is comprehensive sex education.
Mm-hmm.
That's what our coalition would like. That's what our Planned Parenthood would like. But honestly, it's almost a poison pill for any legislature to introduce the legislation. And the research I did today when I ran across that Gene Lyman, the Republican, was thinking about proposing one. I'm not sure how far she got. It never got into the committee, never got, whatever. I was kind of surprised that a Republican would be doing that, although she's kind of, she's not quite as extreme as some of the Republicans, okay? She's not real liberal either, but she's, the most liberal Republican in our legislature is Benita Becker, she's the most liberal Republican in there. Jean can kind of go a little more reasonable sometimes, but she doesn't always. So I was a little surprised at seeing that she had tried to introduce this a few years ago, but she didn't get anywhere with it. And I don't know that anything's been proposed lately, and the reason is because everybody knows that it's not going anywhere. And it won't go anywhere until we get rid of a bunch of these.
Evangelical types, we could say it.
And they're mostly, okay, there's a woman or two on that side, okay, but they're mostly old white men.
Watch out.
That seems to be the.
Want to legislate what women can do.
Because they know what's best for women, you see, and the reason they know that is because of the Bible. So
Mm.
Well, and their total ignorance of sex period sometimes is amazing. It's like, don't you have wives and daughters that you should know how the female reproduction system works, and they don't even think you know? It's astounding.
Well, when John and I briefly discussed this earlier, I said something to the extent of, these evangelicals just want to only teach sex to their children the way that, quote, Jesus would teach sex to their children.
So I envision Jesus sitting down with some children and saying, "Now here's a penis."
Well, most of it.
Yeah, right. It sounds really ridiculous, of course, that way. But
Well, I could tell you about this, and the tape of this is somewhere on. In fact, I think I have the link somewhere to send you. But this particular exchange this year was in discussion on this bill. So Senator Cruz is up there, advocating for this bill, and that was when it was opt-in only. And so, and he said, it had to do with the terminology was teaching about human sexuality. So Greg Taylor is he's a senator from Indianapolis area, Democrat. He doesn't mind what he says anyway. And so he says to Senator Cruz, he says, now, is it okay to teach about how the sperm and the egg unite? Senator Cruz says, oh yes, that's normal.
Okay.
And so the look on Taylor's face is priceless. He just looks like, and he says, that's human sexuality.
Yeah.
And Cruz says, yes, but that's normal.
Oh, He said it. He said those exact words, huh?
What they really were aiming at was to keep anything about homosexuality.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier, and I suggested that's the reason.
Real aim, anything about homosexuality, transgender, anything like that. They don't want their kids to even know that exists.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they'd rather repress any child who has inclinations that they may be gay by not giving them information that's normal.
They find out about it, they'll make them gay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we can't even teach the kids about ringing Satan's doorbell. None of that stuff. I mean, it's just nothing, and that's all you get.
This day and age, unless you keep your kids totally off the television or whatever.
Yeah. That's the gist of it. You have to unplug and get off the grid if you really want to avoid.
Wrong information.
Yeah, that's why before you called in, I was talking about this book. I had mentioned Christianity is not great. There's a really great chapter for ignorant people who don't understand about homosexuality and how that happens and how people are born gay by Veronica Drance. Really one of the most scholarly, best chapters I've ever seen on the topic, and it's in this book, Christianity is not great.
Yeah, you can have all kinds of interesting conversations with theists, but especially Christians, in my experience, where they try to rationalize and really defend their bigotry, and it's all because of the Bible, obviously. Abomination.
Yeah, it's an antiquated morality that no longer holds water. Never did, of course. It's just that they're not really willing to update their morals because of the advancements of science, and in this case, homosexuality. And so that's what's holding Indiana back. I say to people, when you come to Indiana, step back 200 years.
That seems
Yeah.
like a real Catholic agenda to me. Yeah, I would honestly, I'm just going to say it, I would have assumed. See, I don't know.
The real agenda, that's what I thought.
Well,
I'm glad you gutted it. That's how things go, listeners. You gut it, by amending it to death, And what I'm happy about is that you were able to do that, because we have to have people like you and others who monitor those things and help gather people together for influence to be able to gut those kinds of bills.
Here's one thing that I'm curious about that I just thought of. So do you know if, as it stands, is sex education, is this something that's an elective, essentially? Is this something that you don't ever have to take as it stands?
I was kind of brushing up on that today, and from what I gather, it says it's suggested or recommended as a top health classes. But it's up to local school system.
Okay.
Now there are 2 or 3 things that the law says have to be taught. One of them is well, they have to teach about AIDS, okay? Now, but evidently they can't teach. Well, I don't know. Maybe they can't teach about condoms. I don't know. They have to have AIDS education, okay? And they have to learn about testicular cancer for boys, and they have to learn about breast cancer for girls. Now, I was a teacher 37 years, and they would have, well, in more recent years, they had special things for the boys about testicular cancer and the girls about breast cancer. Well, those 2 things have to be taught, and AIDS awareness has to be taught. Now, I don't know how they handle the, well, I don't think they can teach about condoms. I don't know.
So did you have any more questions?
No.
They don't have to teach it.
All right, Reba. Well,
I think most school systems, and the one I taught in at high school, they have sex education even in the health department.
well, anecdotal story time. My sex education, I thought, was on point. I went to a local high school. I learned all about. I did learn about abstinence only, but I also learned about other methods as well. In fact, this is why I was shocked that you couldn't learn about contraceptives in this state, because I remember them at least mentioning the fact that they were available in the nurse's office. I remember that at least being mentioned. I'm sorry?
I think that's good.
Yeah, so maybe I had some teachers who were breaking some rules. I honestly don't know. But
Some may and get by with it. And then I ran across an article by a person who teaches health in a high school in Indiana, and what he said was that he wasn't allowed to teach about contraception as part of the curriculum, but if students asked him about it, he could answer this question. Now that was probably just maybe a leeway by his school corporation, because it doesn't really say that in something I saw on the station.
okay, Reba. Well, I want to first of all, I want to thank you for calling into our show. I really appreciate it. Before we let you go, though, I would just like to ask if there was any other niche or any other tidbit that you would like to add to this conversation.
I don't know. I mean, the topic you asked me to talk on today, I think pretty well covered it.
And thank you very much. You did a
Mention him.
fantastic job of it.
Things later.
All right, Reba.
I'm
Well,
pretty out there down here in Indianapolis. I'm over at the legislature, and I did a lot of advocacy and testifying against school vouchers a few years ago. But that's another thing. I mean, we have it. It's not going away until we elect some different people. So
that's
a lot to do on that right now. And I also did a lot of advocacy on the LGBT issues and marriage controversy and on RFRA and all that stuff.
Well, we need you. Once again, this is Reba Wooden, the Executive Director of Center for Inquiry in Indianapolis, and she's just a wonderful person, doing a lot of good work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reba. Thank you for calling in.
Okay, anytime.
All right, have a great day. All right, everybody, and that opens up a line for you if you would like to call in the show. We have about 10, maybe 15 minutes left. That number, again, is 260-422-3902, or you can email your questions to weareatheisttv@gmail.com. John,
What?
before we move on to any other housekeeping items, did you have anything in particular that you'd like to talk about?
My book.
Your book again. Let's do it. Let's keep it alive.
Just to keep it alive. No, really, it's. I didn't write these chapters. I wrote 4 of them, but get the book. This is one of the reasons why we do what we do. We have all kinds of things. One is, there's no evidence for the kinds of things that people seem to want to defend. But two, the reason why we're motivated, they say, well, why are you attacking God? What did God do for, to you? Why do you even attack him if you don't think he exists, right? Well, this is the reason is because there are believers who think God exists, and he's whispering in their ears, you see, and telling them. And you never see God talking to a bunch of people. He's always whispering in someone's ears, telling us how to use our penises, for instance, and telling us what kind of education we have for our kids. And we're just standing against that. We want secular reasons for our laws, not God did it reasons.
Amen. Amen.
That's right.
No, I'm right there with you, man. Again, this is why we do what we do. My main goal in doing this from the onset ultimately is to normalize atheism and humanism. I think that's one of the most important things that we can do. One of the reasons why I say that is, for example, just in doing advertising for this show, boosting some products, creating some merchandise, and just having a Facebook page. A lot of the feedback that we get is just, I hate to say this word so frequently, but it's ridiculous and incredibly offensive. I had a guy who responded to one of our ads, and he said something to the effect of, "Don't give these guys a platform. They're all evil liars at best." To which I, again, in a nutshell, basically responded with, "Well, thank you for this platform. I would just like to put it out there that if you would like to know why this guy is wrong, please give us a call, 422-3902. And that this is just the sort of feedback that we're going to get. Now, to be fair, I'm pretty sure that at least a handful of out and about proselytizing theists get the same spiel from atheists. But I honestly, to be called evil for simply being an atheist, I think is at the top of my list of things that need fixing.
I prefer secular reasons for actions, and we've had a lot of God did it reasons, and it's gotten us into a mess. So there's been crusades, there's been witch hunts, there's been slavery, there's been misogyny. God says this, and treat your woman like chattel. I've mentioned this before, but the 10th commandment says, "Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's property, his wife, or his slaves." That puts wife below the property. I'm not going to listen to that crap. I'm just not going to do that. I want secular reasons for things, and women outdistance men in a lot of areas. Give them the reins. I'm for it, It's just that when this God did it answer is no answer. So to say that we're the evil ones, I want you to think of witch burning. I want you to think of someone being burned alive because he or she was accused of being a witch. And you tell me who the evil one is. The one who listens to some imaginary voice in his or her ear telling him burn someone to death, or someone who says, well, let's think about secular reasons for things, and secular reasons would say that everybody should have some kind of greater good for the greatest number of people. It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. I could go on, and there's things I left out, but
well, plenty.
Yeah,
absolutely. Because there's like this. A lot of people have a difficult time really hashing out the difference between their ontological beliefs and their epistemological beliefs, and really come to terms with it. And I really think that if people could really.
How you know what you know? I mean, if you claim to know something because of an ancient book. Mm-hmm. An ancient book without any evidence for it. I'm flipping through this. This isn't that book. If you claim to know what you know by some ancient, pre-scientific, barbaric book, then you're claiming to know something that you don't know.
Yeah. Are Raw, again, one of my favorite activists, atheist activists, is very good at approaching people and calling them out on their bullcrap whenever they decide to use the Bible itself as, quote, evidence. He's got his whole spiel about what evidence is, how to apply it, which is very good. I'll leave it to Arn to explain that whole process. But long story short, you're absolutely right. There's like nothing in the Bible that you could validate as fact. There's really nothing there. I mean, a couple of historical places actually have existed, and that's kind of the gist of it, as far as I can tell.
Yeah,
that's all the valid truth that we can know with any amount of certainty, is that some of these places may have existed, but it's like the old Adam. you know, if archaeologists 10,000 years from now discover New York, that doesn't necessarily mean Spider-Man was real, right? So it's kind of the same spiel. If all you have is evidence that a place in this book existed, that's not proof that the book is
so
true.
what? Jerusalem exists. You know, it doesn't mean anything as far as the claims that you know, Jesus arose from the dead there, or he heals the blind person and that kind of stuff. But if back to the atheists are evil compared to the believers, Hector Avalos is a massive amount of work showing that the Bible is completely irrelevant to a modern day society. And he's written books like The End of Christianity, The Bad Jesus, and he documents how Jesus is not that good person you think he is. He wrote a book on slavery. I forget
I'm sorry to interrupt you there. We've only got a couple minutes left, and I think that right there, what you just mentioned,
it's completely irrelevant to a modern society. Hector Avalos. If you read books, read his.
I want to spend the last couple minutes talking about how Jesus isn't as good of a role model as most people would imagine. In fact, it took me a very long time, well into, honestly, I'll go ahead and say it. I think it was only about 2 or 3 years ago where I was really convinced that pretty much everything that Jesus taught is either nonsense, common knowledge, or outright immoral. Just absolutely immoral. The Beatitudes, Matt Dillahunty, I remember him mentioning frequently that the Beatitudes has its flaws, and he did a whole dissertation on the Beatitudes, and it was reading that. Matt Dillahunty has a dissertation on the Beatitudes, which is the Sermon on the Mount, essentially, for those who might not know.
Which was never spoken as a sermon.
Yeah, and I think there's 2 tellings of it.
Luke and Matthew, right? Yeah, they're different. Yeah, they're
slightly different. And so, long story short, he has a very good dissertation on that explains all of the silliness. He highlights where things are, at least according to his secular humanism, immoral, or even in some cases, so far as he'll say like an abomination. Like, this is just ridiculous, absurd. And he goes through the whole thing. It's not a very long read. It'll only take you maybe 20 minutes at most to get through the whole thing. It doesn't take very long, but I was wondering if you might be able to elaborate on some of the more, just sort of discuss the darker side of Jesus.
Well, I mean, like Jesus says, if you not hate your mother and father to follow me, you cannot be my disciple. Hector Avalos, I was mentioning him just a minute ago. He just looked at the Greek in there, and basically he means, you know, these cultists who try to separate kids from their parents by saying your parents are evil or abandon them or leave them. That's what Jesus did for his disciples. And it's just, he never gave anybody advice on how to get a good job or entrepreneurship. I mean, none of that stuff was important to him. Only follow me into some heavenly sky and something like that. It's just very heavenly focused, you know, too heavenly good to be any earthly good for the most part.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest downsides to Christianity too, is at least for my particular family, the standard was perfection. And perfection by Jesus' standards. And as we just got done discussing, that's not a very good standard necessarily to be wanting to adhere to. I mean, to try to be that in every way, shape, or form, to make your entire life conform.
It's a guilt trip. It's a guilt trip. He's trying to make us feel guilty because nobody's going to live up to whatever that is, so long as they first of all interpret it in the best possible light. They have to first misinterpret it. But then the whole point of religion is to make us feel guilty, and then here's the answer. We've got the answer. Look at those religions. It always starts out most of the time is you've got a problem, I've got a solution. Now give me some money, and it's going to help you somehow. You know, it's just
give us that money.
And they raise you from birth and they scare you until death to keep giving that money, because if you donate the money, you buy the apparatuses, you buy the Bibles, you pay for the church, then all of a sudden you're going to feel better about yourself and you're going to be absolved from your guilt. Now the guilt is the fact that we have regrets. Listen, we have regrets. Get over it, all right? It's bad. It's bad enough then to throw a religion on top of it as if that's going to help you. It's not. Live your life, be a man, be a woman, do the things you need to do. You don't need to go to church every week to tell people, to learn how to behave. That's why I don't go to church. I don't need to be told every week, here's how you should behave. I already know how to behave. You know, I don't always live up to my own standards, but that's my own standards, the ones I've chosen for secular reasons. So why would people go to church every Sunday to be told what to do?
All right, guys. Well, that's a wrap. I want to thank everybody for watching. And once more, we are atheists. We'll see you next time.